Violence explodes across the US tonight. Riots and looting as protesters clash with police. The wild reaction to a deadly arrest. More than 100 suburban newspapers closed down in a large-scale overhaul at News Corp. Hundreds lose their jobs. Two major Western Sydney projects on the chopping block to save billions of dollars. Ski season gets the green light in time for school holidays. The state's churches and wedding venues appeal for a break. A multi-million-dollar fine. Makers of a popular arthritis treatment convicted of false advertising and tricking customers. On our beaches and out to sea, the container ship clean-up now stretching hundreds of kilometres. And the unbeaten Eels lift off for the NRL's restart north of the border.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Mark Ferguson.
Good evening. Parts of the US are at flashpoint tonight. Protesters looting and attacking police, some even torching a city over the death of an unarmed man during his arrest. At least one person has been shot dead in the widespread mayhem as angry crowds demand the officers involved are charged.
Looted and burning. A city's rage ignites. Streaming from shops, looters ransack shelves at Target. Unconfirmed reports, one's been shot dead. Locals set upon as they tried to defend stores. As absolute anarchy takes over the streets of Minneapolis. And police confront the wrath of their citizens.
Yeah, it's about damn time some heavily armed rednecks stood with fellow citizens.
Rage spreading nationwide. This is Los Angeles.
Oh my goodness.
A protester flung from the bonnet. Crowds race in, surrounding another patrol car.
Holy Christmas. Oh boy.
Shutting down a major freeway, demanding justice.
There's still a large group of people here now back in the downtown area, but what there is also now is a large police presence in riot gear trying to contain and disperse those who remain. After what happened in Minneapolis and what has happened now here in Los Angeles, authorities are on alert across the country.
This is who they're protesting for. George Floyd, dead after being pinned to the ground with a policeman's knee on his neck.
I cannot breathe. You just a grown.
Only removed to put Mr. Floyd's listless body onto a stretcher. New video now casting doubt on officers' claims he'd put up a fight.
This was a murder caught on camera, which has happened way too often.
The Minneapolis mayor demanding the arresting officer, who has been fired, now be charged.
If you had done it, or I had done it, we would be behind bars right now.
Instead, that officer's house is surrounded as the FBI investigates and a city burns.
And Paul Caddick is live in central Los Angeles for us. Paul, police there certainly don't think this is over.
Good evening, Mark. Yeah, that's right. The LAPD is under a citywide alert, bracing for more of what we saw here today. And in Minneapolis, where this started, state troopers have been called in and the National Guard will be next if the violence continues. Now, we believe that person shot dead was killed by a shop owner defending their store. And beyond that, the damage from these protests is widespread. Minneapolis police tonight defending themselves again, the same police force that came to the world's attention almost 3 years ago when one of their officers shot and killed unarmed Australian Justine Damond-Ruszczyk. Mark.
Thank you. In a bleak day for Australian media, News Corp has announced it will stop the presses on more than 100 of its titles. Suburban and regional papers will go online only or be axed altogether. A move that'll trigger massive job losses and see community voices spanning generations silenced.
The Parramatta Advertiser, founded 1933. The offices today deserted, vacant, with confirmation they won't be printing again.
It is a sad day.
The boss of News Corp Australia says coronavirus just confirmed the inevitable.
It's been accelerated by COVID, but the tipping point had been seen way before the start of this year.
112 suburban and regional newspapers across the country targeted. 36 axed completely, 76 will go online. job losses estimated in the hundreds.
And it's a huge blow for the local communities that these mastheads have served so well for so many years.
Among the Sydney locals to go online, the Penrith Press, Macarthur Chronicle, Blacktown Advocate, Hillshire Times, Liverpool Leader, Parramatta Advertiser and Inner West Courier. Down beneath the Parramatta offices of the Advertiser, a mixed reaction.
Sorry for the people involved, but I get my news off my phone.
I know it's really hard. People don't read newspapers anymore these days.
If they lose their local paper, they've lost all hope of an independent view.
For some, of course, receiving a free suburban newspaper was akin to getting junk mail. For others, though, they were a vital link into the community. The trouble is that their biggest users were the tech giants, Facebook and Google. Accused of ripping off content for years without paying a cent, it made the papers unsustainable.
The tech giants just taking aim at the media sector and not only stealing their lunch, but taking their breakfast, lunch and dinner.
After the announced closure of Newswire AAP in March, it's another massive blow to Australian media.
Obviously the concern is that this may not be the end.
The kind of news they didn't want delivered.
And let's go live to Chief Reporter Chris Reason. Now, Chris, calls are growing for the government to take action against the tech giants.
Yeah, good evening, Mark. Well, to be fair, they are. It's the tech giants that have been dragging their feet here. Last month, the federal government ordered the consumer watchdog, the ACCC, to draw up a draft code of conduct to force the social media giants to share their revenue with the Australian media companies. And that document is due out in July. It is a race against time, though. And for all those people that say, well, I don't need newspapers or TV news because I've got it through my phone, well, it's worth noting that if Australian media companies do fall over, go out of business, then Facebook won't have any local news content to put onto those phones. Mark?
Very good point. Chris Reason, thank you. In breaking news, there's traffic chaos in Sydney South tonight after 2 people were killed in a head-on collision at Menai. Emergency crews were called to the 2-vehicle crash on Alfords Point Road just before 5 o'clock. A man who was trapped but survived has been freed from the wreckage. Paramedics say he's conscious but suffered a chest injury. Drivers have been urged to avoid Alfords Point Road, which is now closed in both directions. 2 of the state government's most controversial Western Sydney projects could be delayed or scrapped to save $2 billion. As 7 News revealed last night, relocating the Powerhouse Museum and upgrading ANZ Stadium are now in doubt. Today, an agitated Premier refused to confirm that the work will go ahead.
This is the site of the new Powerhouse Museum, relocated from Ultimo to open in 2023. Cost $1.5 billion. The ANZ Stadium upgrade due for completion the same year, $810 million.
Can you guarantee that the relocation of the Powerhouse Museum and the ANZ upgrade will go ahead?
I'm not going to comment on any of those things.
The Premier promised both projects before last year's election.
Absolutely, it is the right decision to make.
But today she refused 8 times to guarantee them.
You're not committing to them now?
I've not said that. You're putting words in my mouth.
I'm asking for a commitment or a guarantee either way.
I'm just saying there could be. The government always assesses our priorities every budget.
And I want to call her out because this is the sneaky and secretive way that this government has operated all the way through.
The Powerhouse Museum Alliance has campaigned against the move from the start.
I'm amazed, but it's also the best news I've heard in 6 years.
There's anger, though, in the West.
This is a slap in the face to every single person that lives in Western Sydney that pays their taxes. They're getting nothing back from them.
An official announcement on the fate of the projects will be made ahead of the budget in November. Also in doubt is the government's plan to freeze public sector wages. The Premier warning she won't guarantee workers' jobs if the upper house rejects the move.
Well, absolutely, we have to look at other options.
This is the Premier trying to hold a gun to the head of the crossbench.
The Treasurer planning to go to the Industrial Relations Commission instead.
There's a lot of people right across New South Wales today who aren't fighting for a pay rise, they're fighting for survival.
Alex Hart, 7 News.
We have exclusive details tonight on the function industry's blueprint to get wedding venues back open, including a 2-hour time limit on receptions and no wedding cake. New South Wales ski fields will reopen for a delayed season start on June the 22nd.
The New South Wales ski fields, tonight back in
from the coronavirus cold.
A great boon for the whole area. A lot of excited people down here in the Snowy Mountains.
It is exciting for the region, for the Snowy Mountains and for tourism and those businesses.
Thredbo, Perisher and Charlotte's Pass can all open on June 22, but Mount Selwyn will remain closed after bushfire damage. Numbers will be capped, lift limits observed, and there'll be social distancing on the slopes.
It's not going to be a year where everyone can come down and go skiing, but hopefully we're going to cater for the majority of people.
Meanwhile, wedding planners are crying out for their start date. Couples are anxious too.
Our offices have become more like a counselling service because especially brides, they're very emotional.
Receptions like this are over for now. Instead, the industry's COVID-safe pitch would limit events to 2 hours, see tables at half capacity, there'd be no cake served and no dancing either.
They're about removing touch points. They're about safely having a number of people in a function centre.
All this as the Catholic Church launches an online petition for 50 people to be allowed in places of worship. At the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, 2 major clusters in the community could be traced back to a church service in Ryde and a wedding near Wollongong. The Premier using those events as examples of why she's holding strong.
One outbreak in an enclosed area or in one organisation can have tragic consequences.
Miley Hogan, 7 News.
Maritime safety authorities have officially detained the ship that lost 40 containers off the New South Wales coast. They say the APL England had rusty attachments and insufficient restraints for the cargo, now washing up on our beaches.
From the air, it looks like a shipwreck, and in a way, it is. The remains of 5 shipping containers washed up on Birdie Beach. Some of the 40 that fell off the freighter APL England in rough seas last weekend. Recovery teams preparing to cart them away.
The main thing in the morning was to get the 5 containers out of the actual tidal line.
Difficult work, given the location. So remote, this is a nudist beach. Further south, near Baddo Bay, more containers washed up onto rocks off Wirrabillong National Park. These are harder to reach, no road access. Tugs will retrieve them and any others still afloat, like all those surgical masks.
They're everywhere, they're floating along, there's thousands of them.
Surf, sand and badly twisted metal. It's been a challenge, but the one thing working in their favour here is the insulation foam is very dense. It doesn't break down, making its clean-up easier.
The foam's from the refrigerated containers.
The APL England has now been officially detained in Brisbane after a safety inspection found rusty attachments and inadequate lashings for the containers. Officials say it's a clear breach of international conventions and the vessel will not be released until it is repaired.
But obviously you hope such incidents don't occur.
But they do, all too often. Chris Marr, 7 News.
A divorced father of 2 accused of killing a Sydney woman, then dumping her body in a Hunters Hill park 2 days later, has refused to face Parramatta Court. 51-year-old Dennis Pietrobin was charged yesterday with murdering Nicole Cartwright in October 2018. They'd allegedly met on a dating app. Pietrobin's next court appearance is in July. The Reserve Bank boss has confirmed interest rates will stay at record lows for years as the economy recovers from COVID-19. Governor Philip Lowe also called for the JobKeeper wage subsidy to be extended or modified, warning ending it too quickly would damage the economy.
At Parliament's Economics Committee, a thumbs up for the economy.
It's entirely possible that the economic downturn will not be severe as earlier thought.
The missing ingredient, confidence. If it's slow to return, that's bad for job seekers but not mortgage holders.
Which means we're going to keep interest rates where they are, perhaps for years.
Then a warning.
I think it's very important we don't withdraw the fiscal stimulus too early.
Including the government's JobKeeper wage subsidy.
The program is legislated for 6 months till the end of September.
There should be a debate about how the JobKeeper program transitions into something else, whether it's extended for specific industries or somehow taper.
One option, replacing the subsidy with HEC-style loans to business.
Then it becomes a very clear case where people can make a choice. If they need the support, they can continue to draw the support, but they will have to pay it back.
We want the government to be proactive about making sure that we don't fall off a fiscal cliff in September.
The National Cabinet meets tomorrow on its agenda whether it should continue meeting beyond this crisis to replace the COAG Premiers Conferences.
I believe that National Cabinet process has been extremely valuable.
The question now, whether it pulls the plug on itself. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Hopeful of a recovery, investors have been buying up stocks in the big four banks, and the market has seen a week of solid gains. Network Finance editor Gemma Acton is here. Gemma, some investors are reaping the rewards.
Yes, Mark, although some of this morning's enthusiasm drifted away after lunchtime, the ASX 200 still added 76 points, or 1.3%, pushing it ever closer back to that 6,000 mark. We've now seen 3 strong days out of the last 4. Since the weekend alone, around $100 billion has been added back to the market's value. After soaring yesterday, the big banks were again back in the spotlight, with NAB, ANZ and Westpac all rising 4 to 5%. This despite an overnight warning from Wayne Byers, the boss of financial regulator APRA, that our economy still faces a long battle ahead. Mark.
Gemma, thank you. 2 men whose job it was to protect voting in the Dally M Awards are tonight accused of a betting scam and now face up to 10 years in jail. The rort saw huge insider bets for Rugby League's Coach of the Year.
StatEdge, the Sydney data company hired by the NRL to protect the integrity of the Dally M voting system, now accused of breaching and profiting from the trust it was given.
Obviously, the integrity of the NRL competition is paramount.
StatEdge collects secret votes on Dally M Awards. The company's owner, 29-year-old Joshua Wilson, and director, 31-year-old Ben Trevissiol, have been charged with placing bets on Melbourne Storm coach Craig Bellamy winning Coach of the Year.
It was an outside party. It's not the NRL, and unfortunately we have to wear the damage.
A police fact sheet obtained by 7 News states an email was sent from Trevissiol's account to NRL staff on the 13th of September. Less than an hour after the email was sent, Trevissiol and Wilson began betting on Craig Bellamy. The next day, they both placed more bets and so did their friends. Bellamy's odds went from $7 to $3, raising suspicion from betting agencies. Police say the bets that both Trevissiol and Wilson made were from their own accounts in their own names. And investigators haven't ruled out making further arrests.
There were some bets, as large as $10,000 placed on the outcome.
Police have been very clear. Craig Bellamy and the Melbourne Storm are not involved. Josh Wilson and Ben Trevissiol will face court in August. Peter Fegan, 7 News.
It was meant to be the day Americans soared back into space from American soil on American rockets. But Florida's notorious weather wasn't playing ball. The launch stopped with just minutes to lift off.
At the pad where man blasted off to the moon, anticipation for a new space chapter to begin. Astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, all suited up, all smiles, ascending to the Dragon capsule and strapped in for liftoff.
Check on how that suit air feels about now.
Millions were watching on TV and online, and thousands in person.
This is going to be very cool for us to be here.
A 2-decade mission for SpaceX's Elon Musk.
This is a dream come true, I think, for me and everyone at SpaceX.
Donald Trump flew in to see them soar, but already the weather wasn't looking good.
I just want to say this is a very exciting day for our country.
Storms were rolling in with high winds and lightning. The countdown continued with hopes it would clear, but with 17 minutes to launch, the bad news.
Unfortunately, we are not going to launch today.
The astronauts philosophical.
We appreciate that, understand that everybody's probably a little bit bummed out. It's just part of the deal.
The next available window is Saturday afternoon local time, early Sunday morning in Australia. At this stage, the weather forecast suggests a 60% chance of liftoff. And another shot for SpaceX history. At Cape Canaveral, Florida, Amelia Brace, 7 News.
Time now for a check on our weather. Brownie, how Harbour City turned it on today.
Oh, spot on, Fergo. Yes, it's been a beautiful day. Sunny, light winds, maxima in the low 20s. Right now in our city, sitting on 18 degrees. Statewide, it's been fine throughout. After some early fog patches throughout the eastern part of our state, light winds for most of the day. But tomorrow we're expecting this, a southerly surge to power up the coast. It should trigger some isolated showers just along parts of the coast as the day wears on, including our backyard. But look, having said that, most of the metro area can look forward to a fine and partly cloudy day. Coastal rainfall totals at best about 1 millimetre. Sky clear and essentially mid-20s across the Sydney Basin now. It's cold in the Blue Mountains. It's only 9 degrees at Katoomba. Weekend forecast, top of the hour, Fergo.
OK, David, thank you. Police are hunting for a man over a midnight arson attack on a suburban cafe. Next, security video reveals the moment it went up in flames. Also, a man charged over a sophisticated crime ring supplying drugs and guns across Sydney. How 2 hikers survived 19 days lost in the New Zealand wilderness. Back to the Future, Blacktown's historic Skyline Drive-In cinema finally reopens. And later in sport, the niggle intensifies between the Roosters and Rabbitohs ahead of their showdown. Welcome back. A frustrated robber has set fire to a cafe in Melbourne, sending flames sweeping through the business. The blaze was captured on 4 security cameras. The vision released today as police continue to hunt for the man responsible. Moments before the fire, he was seen dousing the premises in petrol after trying and failing to steal cash from the register. Police are examining if there's a link between the arrest of an alleged criminal mastermind and one of the city's most infamous cold cases. Tonight we can reveal the syndicate police claim to have dismantled was discovered while investigating the murder of security guard Gary Alabon 10 years ago.
Where actions speak louder than words. The arrest of Dean Carr was as serious as it gets, and so are the charges he's facing.
Directing and organising a criminal group, supply of large commercial quantities of drugs, the acquisition of firearms, conspiracy to commit armed robberies, child abuse material.
Police allegedly discovered 8,000 files on Carr's phone depicting children engaged in sexually explicit acts. They raided Carr's Earlwood home looking for evidence over this jewellery heist, accuse him of masterminding armed robberies of drug dealers, sourcing shotguns, rifles, Glock pistols, while an alleged accomplice was arrested at this Roseland's home last month, allegedly with 1.2 kilograms of heroin. Surveillance at the time allegedly captured Carr on the phone using Pig Latin, directing his friend to flush the drugs. Tonight we can reveal the strike force that uncovered all of this was set up initially to investigate something else. One of Sydney's most notorious killings. Cash Transit guard Gary Alabon was shot dead during a heist in 2010. Senior bikie Mark Buddle has been publicly identified as a person of interest. He is living overseas. Police are examining if yesterday's raid can provide answers on who else might have been involved.
We seized a large amount of money, jewellery and other items, and all those items are currently being examined to determine if they're linked to any criminality.
Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
Now to a remarkable survival story in New Zealand. This is the moment 2 hikers were reunited with loved ones after spending 19 days lost in remote wilderness. Rescuers managed to spot the pair through a 3-metre hole in the canopy, the pair spending 13 days with no food.
The paramedic Jace, out of nowhere, about 10 minutes into the ride, gave us a couple of chocolate bars. The best chocolate bar I've ever had in my life.
Rescuers say a bag of brown sugar could well have saved them. They are now recovering with just minor injuries. Chaotic scenes in Hong Kong's legislature couldn't stop a controversial bill being forced into law. A lone protester managed to storm the building and a lawmaker threw a brown substance at the leader of the chamber in disgust. The National Security Bill was passed by China's National Congress, effectively sidelining lawmakers in the semi-autonomous territory in an unprecedented move. There are fears the decision will spark another deadly wave of unrest. Movie lovers have a reason to celebrate tonight as the historic drive-in cinema at Blacktown reopens. Cameron Price is there for us. Cameron, it has been a long wait.
Yeah, Mark, cinemas across the country were forced to shut in March tonight for the first time since a screening here at Blacktown's drive-in, and owners say demand for tickets has been through the roof.
This weekend is looking incredibly busy. We're looking that over the weekend we should sell out, so the demand's there, and last weekend we did a members only invitation and that sold out within an hour.
As for when movie theatres elsewhere can open at this stage, no word from authorities, but in Victoria today, an announcement cinemas there can open in July. Mark?
Thank you, Cameron. Enjoy the show. It was supposed to be a more effective treatment for arthritis pain. Next, why a judge found the maker of Voltaren gels tricked customers. Also, the hunt for this car linked to a savage Western Sydney home invasion and murder. A terrifying road rage attack caught on camera. What sparked the violence? And playing catch-up, Britain starts contract tracing as Boris Johnson faces a grilling over his COVID response. In breaking news, we can now reveal lockdown restrictions are about to be eased for weddings, funerals and churches. The state government will announce tomorrow that places of worship can have 50 people inside from Monday if social distancing is adhered to. 20 people will be allowed at weddings and 50 at funerals. Police have released new security video as they hunt for 3 men still on the run following the murder of a Riverstone concreter. Andrew Denny is at Sydney Police Centre tonight. Andrew, they're focusing on a car which was later torched.
Well, Mark, it seems they are closing in on those responsible for this gruesome murder. Kevin Cortis was stabbed to death inside his home on Sunday by 5 thugs. 2 teenagers ran from the scene but were arrested and have been charged with murder. The other 3 got into a vehicle and disappeared. Today, police have released security video of that getaway car seen speeding away in the minutes after the attack. It is a silver 2008 Subaru Forester. It was found torched in North St Mary's 2 days later, and police now want public help trying to figure out where that vehicle had been for the time in between. Now, as for the victim's friends and family, they are raising money for his funeral and to get his body back overseas to Cyprus. It is understood he had a limited criminal history, and it's now the concreter's business dealings that have become the focus of this police investigation. Mark, we're told that more arrests are expected in the coming days.
OK, Andrew Denny, thank you. Police have shot a man dead on Melbourne's Monash Freeway in what they concede was a mental health issue. Drivers saw the man by the side of the road in what was described as a distressed state. Police say he came at them with a knife.
Police members did everything they could to resolve this matter.
The man was identified as a 53-year-old from Melbourne's southeast. The makers of Voltaren pain relief gels have been fined $4.5 million after admitting they lied about their effectiveness. But consumer groups say the real cost for companies caught not telling the truth could be the loss of loyal customers.
One of these products is better than the other, according to Voltaren's marketing. Osteogel advertised as superior and more effective in treating osteoarthritis pain and inflammation than Emulgel. A costly claim proved false by the consumer watchdog and found to be misleading by the federal court.
The active ingredient, the ingredient that you're looking for, was identical.
Despite no difference, Osteogel was sold at a higher price.
This costs consumers a lot of money.
According to Justice James Bromwich, the losses to consumers could well have been in the millions of dollars. He ordered GlaxoSmithKline to pay $1.5 million. Novartis, which it now partially owns, also handed a $3 million penalty.
They're really lying to their customers and getting their customers to pay more than they should. It really is pretty dreadful.
In a statement, GlaxoSmithKline says this penalty brings closure to historical marketing that they admit breached consumer law. But the ACCC says it's likely this won't just cost them cash, but customers as well.
Big companies do put at risk loyal customers when they mislead them, when they take advantage of them.
Had the breaches occurred now, the fines could have been substantially more under recent consumer law reform. Amber Laidler, 7 News.
Dashcam has captured a shocking road rage incident in Brisbane. Jumping out of his blue Ford Falcon at a red light, the man used a steel pipe to smash another driver's bonnet and headlight while clutching a wad of $50 notes. Police also have the video and are now investigating. As the UK plays coronavirus catch-up, finally starting contact tracing, the Prime Minister has revealed his country was unprepared for a pandemic. The admission doing little to restore Boris Johnson's credibility after being accused of trashing his government's health message to protect his strategist.
For 6 days, one story about one man has been the talk of the nation. His boss says it's time to move on.
That what they want now is for us to focus on them and their needs
rather than on a political ding-dong.
80% of the British public believe the PM's senior advisor Dominic Cummings did break lockdown rules, but in a video meeting with senior MPs, Boris Johnson ruled out an inquiry, insisting many allegations are false.
Did you see the evidence to prove that?
Meg, I don't want to
yes
go
or no,
into,
Prime Minister. It's a simple question. Yes or did you see the evidence?
If it pleases you, I will say yes, I did.
Grilled too by his own party.
This is now a distraction. People are very annoyed, Prime Minister.
He did make one significant admission, saying the UK wasn't prepared for a pandemic.
This country did not learn the lessons of SARS or MERS, and we didn't have a test operation ready to go on the scale that we needed.
Unlike other countries, widespread contact tracing hasn't happened here in the UK since March, but that changes today with a new system. It won't be an easy task. In the past 24 hours, 2,000 new COVID cases have been recorded. And that's before lockdown is officially lifted. In London, Sarah Greenhalgh, 7 News.
The global pandemic has sent the aviation industry into freefall. Next, behind the scenes at Sydney Airport and the work to get planes back in the air. Also, with hundreds of thousands of home loans paused, is now the time to get a better deal. A whale and her calf spotted splashing off the heads, while you'll see more of this year.
Soon in sport, the wait is over. The NRL returns tonight. We'll hear from the man who made it happen.
Cool and sunny today. Coastal showers tomorrow. Details soon.
Checking the markets, and as we mentioned earlier, the ASX 200 closed 76 points higher. The big four banks were among the best performers. Shares in blue chip resource companies like Rio Tinto were also up. And our dollar is buying 66.12 US cents. Fuel prices have remained fairly steady across Sydney. Today's average was $1.04.5 a litre, but you can find regular unleaded for 93 cents at Hoxton Park. Ford in America has designed a heat-blasting system to kill coronavirus in police patrol cars. Enhanced software uses the vehicle's engine heat to bake the cabin to 56 degrees Celsius for 15 minutes. Trials have shown it can destroy 99% of the virus on surfaces. American police have been transporting COVID patients to hospital, so their cars need effective cleaning. A whale and her calf have been spotted off South Head, splashing and playing in the water just 300 metres from shore. With the annual migration to warmer northern waters well underway, the mammals are swimming closer to the coast this year. That's because there are fewer boats in the water due to the pandemic. Before the pandemic, planes landed every few minutes at Sydney Airport and tens of thousands of passengers passed through the terminals every day. Now it's deserted, the tarmac a parking lot. 7 News was given exclusive access to see the effect of the shutdown with new hope of a revival.
It's a sign of the times for Australia's troubled aviation industry. Sydney International Airport, a ghost town. Terminals abandoned, duty-free, fenced off, and 100 planes standing dormant on the runway.
And that's taken a bit of getting used to.
Nigel Coughlin has worked on the ground crew for 21 years.
This place has a real humdrum to it. There's a bit of excitement in the air, and it's like that every day. So to see it this quiet, that's unusual. It's sad to see.
This time last year, the airport serviced 150,000 people a day. Now it's a few hundred.
Since March, we've seen the airport really grind to a halt.
But there are signs of life, an uptick in domestic travel and high-level negotiations with New Zealand to resume flights.
We would hope that the Trans-Tasman bubble, flights to New Zealand, could open up by the July school holidays.
Getting these planes back in the air will depend on how quickly borders are allowed to reopen and travel can resume, with many in the industry warning the longer it goes on, the more businesses that will go under.
We need to get things moving for the July school holidays, because if we miss the July school holidays, the next opportunity is September, October. And there are many businesses in the tourism sector that can't last another 3 or 4 months.
Cameron Price, 7 News.
Parking for too long was not a problem for a driver in Rozelle this week. She copped a parking fine for overstaying, but the penalty was $0 and a warning only saying do not pay. The Inner West Council's COVID kindness is ending though, with real fines back from next week. The COVID crisis has forced hundreds of thousands of people to defer mortgage payments, with experts warning it's only putting off future financial pain. But there is something you can do right now to save money. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. But now Mel is back with sport, and Mel, the wait is nearly over.
It is, Fergo. Can you believe it? The footy is finally back tonight, in large part due to Peter V'landys. We'll get his thoughts, as well as Wayne Bennett on Latrell Mitchell next. Plus, Dragons coach Paul McGregor warns his players reputation means nothing when it comes to team selections. And in the best sign yet, we'll have India on our shores this summer. Cricket Australia sets the dates. Welcome back. Well, after almost 10 weeks without the NRL, kickoff is about an hour away for the much-anticipated season resumption. The Eels flew out this afternoon on a chartered flight from Bankstown Airport and will return straight after tonight's clash against the Broncos.
Lift-off for Project Apollo and Parramatta, who'll be out to maintain their unbeaten start to the season. The man who's driven the game's return couldn't be happier.
The last thing I wanted to do on the 28th of May is not be ready and let the fans down, let the players down, let everyone down. So it was better to set an ambitious date.
This week, the NRL has had to deal with a drug scandal involving Sharks rising star Bronson Xerri. The 19-year-old tested positive to performance-enhancing drugs from a test 6 months ago.
We have a responsibility to seek answers. Everyone's accountable. We're accountable. ASADA should be accountable. And we want to know why it took so long.
And the game's can-do power broker is hell-bent on crowds returning by July.
We believe the risk is minimal to nil in allowing crowds back in if we have tight biosecurity measures.
No crowds yet, but one thing hasn't changed: the intense dislike between the Bunnies and the Roosters, with coach Trent Robinson firing back at Adam Reynolds' claims the Tricolours are the most despised team in the competition.
Well, it's good that he's thinking about us. If we're in his head in that way, then that's a positive for us. You know, if he's going to expend energy worrying about that.
James Roberts won't play tomorrow night, while Souths coach Wayne Bennett expects Latrell Mitchell to play the full 80 minutes at fullback.
He does things at training that only really, really good players can do, and he's in that category of being an absolute quality player.
But suspended playmaker Cody Walker was off limits with the master coach.
I didn't come here to talk about Cody Walker. I came here to talk about tomorrow's game. If you want to talk about that, I'm happy. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Michelle Bishop, 7 News.
St George Illawarra coach Paul McGregor has warned his players that no one is safe regardless of reputation. McGregor has shown he's willing to make the tough calls, leaving former internationals Isaac Luke and Trent Merrin out of the squad to play the Warriors on Saturday.
The players that do play in round 3 are the best players selected for that game, and then if their performance warrants selection in round 4, they will, and if not, there's other players there.
The winless Dragons welcome back captain Cameron McInnes from a knee injury for the clash in Gosford. Swans champion Lance Franklin faces at least 10 weeks on the sidelines. Scans today revealed his hamstring injury is worse than the one that saw him miss 9 weeks last year. It is a cruel blow a fortnight before the return of the AFL.
Absolutely devastating. He came home yesterday from training early and he was really upset by what had happened. He'd spent the whole pre-season working so hard, and even in lockdown.
It'll be at least 3 weeks before Buddy is back running. Well, there's growing confidence India will make it here this summer for a blockbuster test series. Cricket Australia will release international schedules for our men's and women's teams tomorrow. The Border Gavaskar series begins at the Gabba on December 3, followed by a pink ball clash in Adelaide on December 11. Then it's the MCG on Boxing Day and the SCG in January. The WACA in Perth will host the first test of the summer, a day-nighter against Afghanistan from November 21. The schedule may change depending on health restrictions. Aussie Jack Miller will join the factory team of MotoGP giants Ducati next year on a deal worth $1 million a season. The 25-year-old is following in the footsteps of former world champion Casey Stoner and Troy Bayliss. The move gives Miller a chance to contend for more victories, and that might mean more shoeies.
It's the Ferrari of MotoGP, so it's awesome to think of it like that.
And in breaking news, the A-League plans to return in mid-July. Football Federation Australia has reached an agreement with the Players' Union that should see teams resume training next month. The final 4 rounds of the season and finals will be completed in the space of 35 days in an isolation hub, most likely here in Sydney. FFA now needs its broadcast partner to sign off on the plan, Fergo. Hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. Get it done. It's great news for football fans. And also, as I always say, go Para.
Do you know what? I will watch the game tonight and I'll be cheering for your team.
Oh, that's kind of you. Very generous. Thanks.
If you're still paying more than 3% on your home loan, pick up the phone and demand a better deal. That's the advice from lending experts, who are also warning, if you can, avoid deferring payments or be prepared to face financial pain in the future.
After a holiday, you're often left catching up with work and chores. But after a mortgage holiday, there's a bigger price to pay.
Repayments never go away. You end up paying interest on the interest over the rest of the life of the loan.
On an average $500,000 loan, deferring payments for 6 months increases your balance to nearly $509,000. You'll be paying $77 more interest each month. Over 25 years, that's an extra $7,600. But there are other ways to save on your home loan.
If your interest rate doesn't have a 2 in front of it, you've got rocks in your head.
Online calculators tell you how much you should be paying your lender.
If you don't ask, you don't get. Pick up the phone, ask your bank for a rate cut, see what they can do.
And variable rate payers could consider fixing. On a $500,000 loan, an average Big Four variable rate customer pays nearly $35,000 in interest over 2 years. Switching to these banks' lowest fixed rates drops that to under $22,000, a saving of more than $12,000.
If you're a good customer and your bank won't drop your rate, the advice is to drop them and refinance. The lowest available variable rate is 2.29% from Homestar and Reduce, while ING is offering 2.09% on a 2-year fixed loan.
Right now is the time to be trying to work out how to save money, and there is massive savings for mortgage holders.
Gemma Acton, 7 News.
David is back now, and Brownie, another great day in the sun today.
Yeah, spot on, Fergo. Coastal showers tomorrow. Local forecast, that's next.
Tonight on the latest from 7 News, why workers are being urged to check their super balances now. Prince Andrew finds himself at the centre of more controversy, and free beer, the Australian brewery pouring 200,000 pints on the house. Hope you can join me for that and every breaking development tonight, the latest from 7 News.
Huge cashback offers, historic deals, not a cent in interest for 5 years. What's on offer and which deals stack up best? 7 News, 6 o'clock.
Tonight, 7 News headlines: violence erupts in the US, businesses looted and burned during protests over the deadly arrest of an unarmed black man. More than 100 local newspapers axed as News Corp stops the presses. Dozens will no longer exist, more will go online. 7 News reveals more restrictions are about to ease. From Monday, 50 people can attend a church or funeral. 20 people will be allowed at weddings. And the cargo ship that lost 40 containers off our coast is now detained. Now, with the latest on Sydney's weather, here's David.
Thanks very much, Fergo. Lots of sunshine today, following some early fog patches in our west. A coastal shower or two is likely tomorrow. Today's top, very pleasant indeed, 22.8 degrees. That's about a degree or two above average. Yes, a reflection of the month to date. And as we go into the suburbs, you'll notice low 20s were popular right across the Sydney Basin. We've had light winds for most of the day. The latest satellite data highlights rising atmospheric pressure across our state. The sky at the moment is clear throughout most areas, but a weak southerly surge is expected tomorrow. We see it powering through. As it pushes through, we're expecting to see some pockets of isolated shower activity along, well, the north and central coast. It should be fine and sunny elsewhere. But in the longer term, snow is on the way. In fact, it should fall across the Alpine region to see the first day of winter on Monday. Yes, climate drivers are also pointing towards a bumper snow season. Yes, a season that's also expected to deliver more than its fair share of rain to most of our state in the coming months. So, yep, a wet winter is brewing. Nationwide tomorrow, more sunshine's on the way for Brisbane, around 24 degrees. Melbourne, well, it's a cold sort of a day, but clear skies, 17 degrees. More wet weather is expected in Perth as another front clips that part of the world, top of around 20 degrees. Back home, morning fog patches. Well, mainly in the east and also through southern areas. Those isolated showers as clipping parts of the coast. It should be fine and generally sunny elsewhere. Of course, that includes most of our backyard. Yet just the odd coastal shower or two moving through. Might see some fog patches in the west first thing, and temperatures generally around high teens coastal, grading to near 20 degrees inland. For our coastal water forecast, this is it. Southerly winds running at around about 15 to 20 knots by mid to late afternoon for the city. Partly cloudy, a brief shower or two. Forecast top of around, well, 19 degrees. Let's move on to the 7-day outlooks. Looking good across the weekend. An early foggy starts likely in our west. Sunday, fine, mostly sunny conditions. And yes, it's a dry start to winter, but that's expected to change. That's the latest weather, Fergo.
Make the most of it. Thanks, Brownie.
Indeed.
That is 7 News for this Thursday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening. I'm Mark Ferguson from all the team. I hope you have a great night.